All right, so we're here at the CoinAgenda conference in Las Vegas with Keita and Steve from Matryx. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing awesome, man. Yeah, of course. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the project and what you guys have going on?
Sure. So Matryx is a collaborative collaborative platform on the blockchain optimized for VR. And traditionally, we've been making VR tools for science and engineering. And we made the first ever molecular modeling tool in VR. We also made the first ever 3D graphing calculator in VR. And so the molecular modeling tool is actually used in big pharma companies today to design drugs inside of virtual reality. And so what we've also done is release like nerfed and light versions of our software onto consumer VR app stores like Steam and Oculus. So Nano One's actually early access on Steam right now. CalcFlow, our graphing calculator, is downloadable today on Oculus and Steam as well. And so the question was like, how can we get these casual users, in their living room with a VR headset to actually contribute towards meaningful science and get credit for the work that they do? Instead of like playing another zombie shooter in VR, just how can we have them innovate and accelerate science?
Yeah, and I had the opportunity to try the headset on not too long ago either, and it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not a science guy myself, but it was very cool how you got to actually interact with the particles and change like the DNA we were switching around, and it felt like very intuitive, and I'd never even used VR before, but felt very, very natural.
Yeah.
And so you guys are essentially being able to upload this content and have it peer edited and reviewed and monetized as well, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of the idea, where you don't necessarily need to be a scientist or engineer, but you could actually intuitively grasp by learning it with your hands in a 3D environment. And then once you sort of know what's going on, you could contribute this. You can upload the things that you create, hash them onto the chain, and know that you created it first. Get that timestamp and that validation that you have true ownership of the things that you create.
Yeah, and if someone were to say, because you can upload your project onto, say, the cloud, and then people can edit that after as well and improve on your design, and then it's split, correct?
Yeah. So you could post things out there, and if other people modify it and improve it, then you guys could split the creation. You could say that both of us are sharing ownership of this.
And it's really, I think, to me, it's one of the most important things is like transparency and openness, but also being able to get credit at the same time, right? It's like paid open source. And I think in science, it's really important because of the fact that a lot of times in science, there's parallel research going on in different parts of the world, whether that's different universities or different big pharma entities. They're all like more or less working on the same thing. And many institutions, especially the higher education post, like university postdoctorate, it's like they usually talk to each other about their research. But the thing is, there's overlaps that many people don't know are overlapping. And so just to be able to think that, being able to have a database where everything's open, but being able to also say like, hey, I created that, I think is going to be spurring a ton of innovation that was being held back before. And like, if you think about it, like the microwave, for instance, was an invention by a dude who was like studying radars and stuff. And he happened to think like, oh, hey, this is like warming up, a part of this in my research.
Right? Resonate at the same frequency as water. Like maybe that could heat things up.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But that's a very isolated and lucky situation in which this guy had the creativity to actually apply it to food, right? So imagine like if you have like all these other researchers, but then able to have somebody else look at that the same research and be like, oh shit, what if we applied it to somewhere else?
Well, see, this is what I like so much about the platform is because it was before a very exclusive thing to be able to design these molecules and these different medicines and things like that. And now not only is it open source, but it's like very tangible and easy to manipulate and change and to see what works.
Right.
Like, I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing in there when I was doing it, but it sure was like, wow, okay, like I understand how to work the thing.
Right.
So then what would be, like, for me, obviously I have no knowledge of like creating DNA strands and different medicines and things like that. So it would be like a baseline knowledge for someone to be able to get in on this.
So I think a really good example, a lot of people say like, oh, but I don't know science, like I don't think I can contribute. But the thing is, designing a drug is like designing a really complex key for a really complex lock. And so it's And if you have a virtual reality interface, then you get really hands-on on it, and it's like almost like a 3D puzzle. And so a lot of the ideation of designing a drug is literally how a chemical fits into a certain binding site in a protein, and so you're changing the different parts of the chemical, seeing how it visually fits. And so Steve's a nano engineering expert here, and you could talk more about the technical details. But really, like by having an intuitive interface, you really lower the barrier to entry. So this is like exactly what you're talking about.
And one of the other things with learning chemistry is learning how to react this chemical with that chemical to that chemical to build the end thing. And we're really taking the opposite direction. We're saying, solve the 3D puzzle very geometrically, get that end result, and the rest of the pipeline is actually automated. To say that you need to buy this chemical and this one to mix them together, like that is an automated piece of software that exists. And the limiting reagent there isn't any of the chemicals; it's the new design, and that's really what we want to enable people to create.
You want to talk about the pipeline with that one company that we can't talk about?
Yeah, well, so we're working on a few pretty big partnerships with different pharmaceutical companies. So one that we're currently working with is one of the top 5. Another one that we're in procurement with is actually has an automated robot facility that'll automatically produce chemicals. So once you have the blueprint of what you want to create, you can upload it to the cloud and it'll actually create it in real life. And then another company that we're soon to be working with has a piece of software that will automatically give you direct routes to synthesis. So you could find the cheapest and the most cost-effective routes. So it'll give you 50 to 100 different ways to synthesize that same chemical.
It's like Google Maps for like creating chemicals. You just put in the end result and it just tells you how to make it.
Yeah, almost like gone are the days where you're like you got people with the glasses and the Erlenmeyer flasks and stuff. So this is like.
And what's crazy is that's kind of like the image that you have is like making chemicals is like flasks and stuff like that.
It's the 20th century. But the 21st. It's all software. It's all code. It's all bits of information.
But now you have these like industrialized like KUKA-bots that could just mix these chemicals at a super lightning fast rate. That so one of the companies that we're talking to right now, the bottleneck isn't actually making the chemical. It's literally the ideas of what the chemicals are going to be. Because then as soon as they have it, they have some guy in the East Coast type in a chemical formula, hit enter, and then somebody on the west, or the robots on the West Coast actually, for lack of a better word, print that chemical overnight, right? So as a result, like there's all this downtime that these robots aren't doing anything for, and so that's why they actually need, an influx of ideas and different types of designs to make. And so that's where the crowdsourced part fits in.
So then because it would be necessary then to have a human element because essentially like computers cannot solve this problem?
I think that this could definitely be augmented with machine learning, and that there's a lot of like deep chem with NVIDIA, there's a lot of open frameworks out there for software where if you're a user and you're trying to design a new drug, you would actually want to utilize deep learning to help spit out different variations, and then you would modify them with the human touch, right? That human touch, that geometric intuition of how things might bind, and even like knowledge of like the structure of the protein, like it could definitely be augmented with machine intelligence. And I think the real beauty of this platform is that we're going to be seeing users work with the computer to help optimize everything. We want to provide that user interface that gives everybody the optimal experience.
And what's really exciting, and again, going back to the idea of open and collaborative, just like what Numerai's doing with their data scientists, like when you have all this data of these, hobbyists and amateurs, even professionals designing drugs, you're going to have this huge influx of data that you never did before of how people design drugs, right? Because right now, all that data is, so what's ridiculous, one of our users actually have told us that the traditional way that he designs a drug is to literally go into a command line and update the X, Y, and Z coordinates of a chemical using like a keyboard. And it's like there's no way you can get intuitive design, but more importantly, good data on how people design, right? So through our interface as well as our blockchain, you have all this immense amount of data that now you can actually put on some machine learning algorithms just to actually mimic it for actual artificial intelligence. Right?
So as you guys are starting to see, like there's going to be more and more implementations of people starting to design more and more medicines and drugs and applications to like better our health and like our lives. What's the end result that you guys are looking to see or expecting to see?
So as a platform or as like for?
Well, as a platform for one, but also as on like a global scale of like this is probably what's going to shift in our world.
So I think that there's a lot of people growing up today that are going to be utilizing tools like ours. And I think that future world where people are just, they take it for granted that these are the tools that they have access to, and they can be that free range creator. I want to live in that world where all these technological breakthroughs are happening all the time because it's decentralized. You have billions of people that are creating new things. So whether that's a new drug to fight cancer, Ebola, some Black Plague 3.0 breaks out in the world, and people just start dropping like flies. Like, how do we mobilize? How do we mobilize the entire species and then tackle that?
So essentially, what it seems like is like this what we're doing here, what you guys are doing is like there's a Rubik's Cube to be solved. And rather than giving the Rubik's Cube to one expert and being like, hey, you solve this because you have a PhD in Rubik's Cubes, you're like, hey, world, solve this Rubik's Cube. Let's see who does it fastest.
Exactly. Well, and best, and then get credit for which moves that you do, right?
Right. Exactly.
And it wouldn't just have to be drugs. Like, I think drugs is a really great use case because medical industry, like, that affects all of us. Like, we all want to live. Like, we don't want to die like when we're 25. We want to live somewhat of a decent life. But I think augmenting technology, whether that's solar, battery, faster computers, like, that's all dictated by nanoscale interactions. So by giving people just a general nanoscale design platform, we could see breakthroughs in every field.
So right now you guys are like more so focusing in on the medicine side of things, but there is really limitless applications to where this could go.
I mean, like,
to quote one of my favorite physicists, and kind of like a hero in the space, there's plenty of room at the bottom. So by looking at the nanoscale and by designing things from a nanoscale up, it's really limitless in what you could create in the physical, like, human scale world.
The nanoscale, by the way, is like atoms and molecules. For those of you who don't know, it's starting at the nanoscale. So what's really awesome,
1/1000th of a meter, thousands of times smaller than a human hair.
Yeah. So it's really awesome is like, if you look at a drug like Tylenol or many other drugs that are small molecule based, the size is about anywhere between 5 nanometers to a few dozen, right? And so what else is at a few dozen nanometers is a semiconductor in your phone. Is about what, like 14 nanometers, 12 nanometers.
So what's cool is that in the phone industry, they're operating like 14 nanometer.
14 nanometer.
But in the ASIC world, they're trying to push it down below 8 nanometer. So we have this like blockchain, like ASIC mining community that's actually going faster than mobile chip manufacturers and faster than CPU and GPU. So it's like ASIC, mobile, CPU, GPU. And so by working with the blockchain field more with Matryx, we think that we could really help out that field.
Like the difference between a drug and an ASIC chip are the elements, right? It's the same scale, for sure, right? It's like you just pick a different element on the periodic table, right? And then of course the structure, right? That's where the design comes.
And the way our world is moving, everything is getting smaller and smaller, like day by day, year by year. So this is going to be like a very tangibly important technology to have.
And one other thing is really another reason why we're starting off with the life sciences and small molecule drug design is to really like save lives. Like at the end of the day, like we had a gentleman come over today, he had Crohn's disease and they still don't have a cure for it. And personalized medicine is a massive part of this. So being able to map your own genome, being able to see exactly what proteins your body produces and telling the public like, hey, like this protein I happen to produce, and by the way, anybody else who produces this protein as well, we can like put our MTX tokens to it and then have it, crowdsource a solution for it, right? So like a lot of times right now, the tragedy is that if a drug isn't going to be profitable, like monetarily, then a big pharma company won't pursue actually trying to find a solution, which is like ridiculously tragic, right? But for a fact that there's enough interest from the public who wants to solve this, and so by being able to not just put a monetary incentive towards it, but allowing anybody to actually contribute towards it, I think those are going to be really important things that we're going to be able to see in the future.
Definitely, this is like just a very logical next step for where we are going. So like, what you guys as a company, who do you have as competitors, for example?
I don't think anybody is like really doing this like crazy future stuff. Like there's definitely a lot of 2D tools for drug design, like that's been out there for a while. Nobody's doing virtual reality based drug design like we are. Collaborative platform where you can collaborate around the world with anybody in there, linking up blockchain based elements to tokenize like collaborations that you could crowdsource to work from other people. Things like this just haven't been created by our species, but it, like you said, it's the inevitable thing that we would create at some point in the future. But why not create it today? That's been the methodology of the company.
So in terms there's a lot of quote unquote competitors in the toes that we happen to dip our toes into, and so, or waters, I guess. And so there's like high-end tools that are 2D based that are really hard to use, that are really expensive. On the other hand, there's like edutainment, like entertainment-based virtual reality experiences where you zoom down to the cellular level, right? And it's that's really cool, but they're not using actual scientific data. Like we're pulling all our data.
Molecules, here's a Tylenol, and we're like, no, like we need a tool. Like import anything you want, like create your own things, modify it, run a simulation. We're all about creation and design.
And then in terms of the blockchain space, I mean, I think in terms of like, mind share and marketing, I think arguably you could say that a competitor would be something like Decentraland, AR Token, there's Engine Coin and stuff like that that are
which are totally different.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that they are completely different, but we're shifting towards like a token economy. So I think that by working with these other organizations that are releasing their own tokens, everybody's in ERC20, like we're all going to be compatible. We're integrating the Airbit's Edge wallet into our platform so that you could actually bring your wallet with you into virtual reality. So it makes virtual reality that much more real because you have your same monetary access, your same access to all your other tokens, and you can now go into the virtual world with this power.
If you have to pay for something in VR, you're not going to take off the headset and pull out your credit card, right?
Pull your $20 trillion Zimbabwe.
That's right.
Let me buy those assets from you. Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe over here. Hyperinflation.
That's why we're at the conference to solve this issue as one. For sure.
And what's really cool is like you can integrate like a VR motion or something to like transactions. So like the online interface.
Private key is just a magical hand wave.
Exactly. Like a handshake could be your secret transaction between your best friend, right? Like it's like all these things that aren't traditionally thought of in 2D interfaces can now be possible. So we're really excited to see these other companies also go into VR and blockchain, to virtual worlds, virtual currencies. It makes sense.
Right on.
It's got to be decentralized.
Definitely. And so, like on the note of tokens, you guys are using tokens on your platform as well. And so, where does the value of the tokens come in from? And when people create content, where is that? I guess like monetary reward being sourced from?
So you want
So we're actually putting out our own bounties to help crowdsource the development of more libraries that other people could use as presets to build off of. So that's going to be in the very beginning stages of the platform, where people could go into virtual reality, start using the platform, and actually receive and split different rewards for their creations.
And those rewards are coming from like the let's say like bank reserve of the.
So during our token sale, we allocated 60% towards the main sale. So this is regular people that are able to buy it and start using the platform. And then we've held 40% for actually future growth of the platform. So this includes like marketing, where we are giving out some of the tokens to VR users.
Matryx affiliates program.
Matryx affiliates program. So giving it to VR users to help use the platform. Working with selected grants for universities and other institutions like that, where we could help them with their research by putting it on the Matryx platform. And then even developing our own like X Prize grand research goals. How do we get to Mars? How do we kill cancer? Things like that. Like how do we actually solve this as a globalized society?
And I like currently, like to give you a concrete example of like the grant system, like you could have a generous donor or even corporate donors that put a grant towards a research project, and then the IP is somehow convoluted or whatever. But with the Matryx affiliates program, what we're doing is we're going to these universities and telling them like, here are some Matryx tokens. Now you can crowdsource your research. And so like if a professor has done a bunch of work on a certain topic of research, right? And he's missing one critical part. He can actually put out that bounty using MTX tokens.
Working with the traditional institutions that would be doing this, but also democratizing it. Like our friend that wanted to cure Crohn's earlier, he was saying like, I don't think I have the resources to cure Crohn's. Well, it's like you could put a bounty pool together where everybody that has Crohn's could be like, all right, we want to give a bigger incentive because this will affect all of us. So how do we really incentivize everyone?
So then would it be correct to say that all rewards come from bounty programs?
Yeah, exactly. And so essentially, like the way that you would use the token, which by the way, like if you buy Matryx tokens through the crowd sale, like you can put bounties yourselves. And so whether if like down the line, and one of the things that we see as like one of the best utilities out of the token is that you can claim like royalties towards certain innovations. So if you say that you're going to put a bounty for curing one disease or another, and whoever actually manufactures it owes you 10%, 20%, 50%, right? Then you have that right, because we want to put that in the smart contract. And so really we want this like free market economy of smart contracts. So you can have essentially the same bounty or the same like challenge or issue, but then different bounty mechanisms that incentivize submitters to actually submit to different bounties.
Right.
So you could have like 3 cures to cancer, but then one says 90% of the royalty goes to the bounty poster instead of the submitter, and the other one's like pure open source, like copy left or something like that.
Yeah.
And then like
Copy left drugs, biohacker future, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then, like, we really want like this free market economy of people that's like, well, if enough people give a shit or care about a certain cause, it doesn't matter what the royalties are; they'll just submit it no matter what.
For sure.
But if it's like so niche to the point where like this needs to happen, like you have to give that monetary incentive, right? So there's going to be that equilibrium point for every bounty that's posted, and so we're really excited to like see that because we don't know where that's going to go, but we know for a fact that providing this foundational platform is just only going to increase innovation.
Right on. So the token's utility is to place the bounties, essentially. Okay.
So yeah, it's every part of the ecosystem. Being able to hash your IP on the chain, keep track of it, trade assets between users on a marketplace, put out bounties to help collaborate and decentralize your research project. But then also really using those hashes on chain associated with your address in order to claim IP rights on the things that you create.
Yeah. So like currently we have it such that like you also need a little bit of MTX tokens to be able to submit a design, for instance.
Okay. So to submit it.
So we're essentially giving out tokens, and then people have to pay like a fraction of a token just to reduce spam.
Yeah.
Because you think about networks where it's like if you pay everybody to do a submission, you're going to end up with a massive amount of spam on the network. And you could have different spam mitigation techniques based on trust, but there's no pure like decentralized like trust system.
So then where do those funds go? So you spend like, let's say like 6 MTX tokens because you submitted a design. Where do those tokens go to?
So we're building out a network right now. So this is going to be used to hash it onto a blockchain, as well as secure it on like an IPFS storage system, so we could actually have a database of all of these assets. So we're moving from essentially a centralized solution to a decentralized solution, and that's going to take some time for us to fully decentralize. So in the meantime, I think Vitalik said that any like token-based like system that doesn't have like a transactional cost when you do things is not going to work. And we completely believe that. So it's all about setting up the network of how users would be using a fully decentralized platform with a semi-centralized approach in the beginning, but then moving towards that fully decentralized network where this could all just operate autonomously without us.
Yeah, and again, this is like our theory going forward. Of course, when we're going to be putting it on test nets and whatnot, things might change, so caveat there.
So you guys have your ICO rolling right now then?
Yeah.
So the token sale is currently live. You could buy tokens from the Matryx website.
And what's that website?
So that's Matryx, Matryx.ai.
Yeah.
Right on. And when's that token sale running till right now?
So our token sale is going to be running towards mid-November. And that's when we're going to be closing off the sale and then burning all of the unsold tokens.
Right on. And you guys are going for an $8 million hard cap.
Yeah, so if before the November date happens and we do hit that $8 million target, then we are going to end the token sale.
And is the ICO in tiers right now, or is it just it's one price to get in on ICO?
Yeah, so we actually have a bonus going on for the month of October where you receive a 5% bonus if you purchase the tokens. And then this bonus will actually go away starting November 1st.
Right on.
Yeah, so we have some like really, really exciting news coming out, but we can't talk about it just yet. And it's really unfortunate for us because it's some really.
If you had to be really vague, what would the news be?
We're working with some really great players in the VR space.
And the pharma space
and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
And so the VR partner with us, we're actually working everything out where we're going to have a pretty big announcement.
Wait, partners, right? Because it's like,
so try not to give away too much. And then our pharmaceutical partner, we're actually putting together a pretty big piece that we want to launch as well to talk about our collaboration.
And so when is that announcement going to be coming out?
As soon as we could get all the paperwork signed. I don't want to talk about it before having the paperwork done, but
we have the paperwork.
Yeah, we have the paperwork. We're working through everything. It should be
just have to hook it up to a carrier pigeon and send it over.
I really wish we could do smart contracts.
I know. That's what happens with centralized institutions.
Or even just do the virtual handshake.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right on. Thanks a lot, guys.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Talking.
Thanks a lot.
Projects.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome.